in just a moment. Before we do, what was your take on that, Benty? Do you think when you are the main event, you are the headline act, do you think you have a duty to speak to everyone, irrelevant if whether or not you think it's maybe skewed towards someone else that you're not a fan of?
A little bit. Listen, look, Jon Jones is in many people's eyes.
What did he say? It was an Aspinall loving, was it?
No, Aspinall Fest.
An Aspinall Fest,
right?
Okay.
In
fact, do you know what? We've got the clip, actually. We've got the clip. So this is exactly what I've just been talking about. Have a listen, and then we'll get Adam Catterall on to explain exactly where we're at with this.
How's it going? Good. How are you doing? All right. Good, man. Good. Have a seat, Stipe. Dallas. Like, I guys in, but hey, I'm not going to do this interview. You know what? No, because it's going to be an Aspinall Fest. I'm not doing it.
Very bizarre. You should watch it on YouTube. So here to tell us more about that is, of course, talkSPORT's brilliant Adam Catterall to tell us more. Catmandu, hello.
How you doing, boys? You well?
We are very well. How are you?
I'm cool, man. I'm all right. No, go on. What do you want to know?
Well, I was saying when I saw the clip, me and Benny were talking, we showed it in the meeting, we were having a little chat about it. I was just asking Benty if when you're the headline act, when you're the main man, if you've got a duty to speak to everyone, whether or not you think that they might be either pro you or anti you. I think that people from all walks of life on all different outlets, sport outlets, want to hear from you. And the fact that he walks into a room and then has one look about and then thinks the same for me and turns his back, I just wonder how that's gone down with everyone.
Listen, just to give a little bit more wider context to everything, there's a narrative in and around Jon Jones at the moment, which he's kind of created himself, that he is not going to fight Tom Aspinall. For those that don't follow the UFC, those that don't follow MMA, the story is this: Jon Jones is the undisputed champion, and Tom Aspinall is the interim heavyweight champion. And he's become the interim heavyweight champion because Jon got injured this time last year. Tom obviously came to New York, beat Sergey Pavlovich, became the interim champion. He's defended it since, and now Jon's back. Obviously defending his title this weekend, but he's not doing it against the interim champion as he should be doing. He's doing it against Stipe Miocic, which was the original fight that was booked, all right? So the narrative in and around that is, okay, you can have the Stipe fight, but then are you going to be defending, as you should, against the interim champion, which is just so happens to be Tom Aspinall next? Jon's created the narrative himself by saying, no, I'm not doing that. Now, this isn't boxing, in my opinion. The beauty of the UFC is that the best guys fight the best guys, and therefore we remove all doubt in divisions, undisputed champions. And if there is an interim champion, which is very, very rare, they fight each other. And then we have the main guy, and the main guy then goes on to defend their championship belt. So Jon's created that narrative. I've been very vocal about that situation. Obviously, people know that I do a TV show with Tom Aspinall, and I am close to him. I'm not going to lie about that. Of course, he knows that. But I've been in these situations plenty of times before, covering boxing and MMA. And I'd like to think I'm pretty professional. I'm always going to give people a first shake. I want to have a proper conversation. Of course, I'm going to challenge narratives that are thrown back at me because that's what I do. That's what proper journalism is. And he is in the headspace of preparing for a fight on Saturday night. If he doesn't want to have that proper conversation, then he's well within his rights and entitled to not have that conversation. He didn't want to do that. He walked away. I then went about with the guys that I'm working with this week, TNT over here with the UFC, to try and facilitate something else in order to get Jon Jones back onto the TNT platform. So I agreed to step down from the interview, and my colleague Nick Peet stepped in, and he ended up doing the interview. He just wouldn't speak to me because of my relationship with Tom. That was it.
So, Catman, let me ask you then, because listen, I'm a big Jon Jones fan. There's an argument, or certainly, that he's the greatest UFC fighter of all time. What is it about Tom Aspinall that he just doesn't want any part of? Because I've never really heard a fighter be so against fighting another opponent. We see it rarely in boxing, where you call it ducking, of course. But for whatever reason, and listen, I think you're 100% right. What is it about Tom Aspinall that he just doesn't want any part of?
He's the next generation, mate. I mean, the record stands for itself. I mean, the arguments that I've been making and pushing back on Jon throughout the week, and it would have happened in the interview if we would have had the conversation, is that what has Tom Aspinall done? That's Jon's basic first line of his answer. Well, he's beaten 5 of the top 10 guys. He's the interim champion. He's had 8 fights. Sorry, he's won 8 fights in the UFC. He's finished every single one of them, and he's done 7 of them in the first round. It's ridiculous. And if you compare that to when Jon became champion back in 2011, it blows Jon's numbers out of the water. So he's done more than enough to earn that opportunity. The reason that Jon does not want to fight Tom Aspinall, and I've no problem saying this to you, and I've no problem saying this to Jon's face, is that he doesn't fully believe that he can beat him. And at this stage in his life and his career, Jon's an undefeated fighter in the UFC, and he wants to protect that legacy. He doesn't want to fight the next best guy. It's as simple as that.
Adam, let me ask you then, because Jon Jones, I understand, has a really good relationship with Dana White. So
yes,
I feel as though Dana White wouldn't push this fight to happen because he doesn't want to upset his mate. But I also understand that UFC is sort of built on the legacy of it's always the very best v the very best. I'm sure I read somewhere that Jon Jones would rather relinquish the belt and give it up than have this fight. So what does this do to UFC if this fight doesn't happen?
Well, the UFC have got to take control of the situation because they've given... Jon's got a lot of money in the bank here, right? Because of his legacy and what he did as a light heavyweight. He's come up to heavyweight, become the champion. He was injured. So therefore, that's why he didn't fight this time last year.
Right.
So they've allowed him to go back to fight Stipe this weekend, which was the original fight. And Stipe is the most decorated heavyweight of all time. That's why this fight is happening this weekend, okay? But then the UFC have to take control of the situation. They've got to push and say, right, undisputed champion fights interim champion. If the undisputed champion then says, I'm not doing that, then they take the belt off him. It really is that simple. And I've been vocal about that and said, listen, if Jon wants to have legacy fights, I have no problem with Jon Jones having legacy fights. It's Jon Jones. So if he wants to fight Pereira, if he wants to fight whoever he wants to fight, that's cool. It's just not at the detriment of the division. We have got a crop of guys coming through that all want to fight for the championship belt. And as you rightfully said there, Andy, the beauty of the UFC is that over the years, it has been built on the best guys fighting the best guys, the number one versus the number two. That is why people come to the UFC, because they are seeing the best fights. The best fight is whoever wins at the weekend versus Tom Aspinall. If that's not next, then the belt comes vacant or it goes to Tom Aspinall, and Tom Aspinall then can start his reign defending the heavyweight championship as it should be.
So, Catman, if Jon Jones doesn't fight Aspinall, do you think that damages Jon Jones' legacy? I know his legacy is already there and he's obviously, again, one of the best to ever do it. But do you think by not fighting Aspinall and being so vocal that he doesn't want to fight Aspinall, that it does damage his legacy in some people's eyes?
I think, yeah, there you go. You've nailed it at the end there. In some people's eyes, yeah. There's a new crop of fan that have come to the UFC that have never seen Jon Jones and his pomp. I'm one of the lucky ones that have seen it, so I know what he is. So therefore, in my opinion, no, it wouldn't damage his legacy if he never fought Tom Aspinall. Obviously, the way he's going about talking about it, people are going to have an opinion about him. I personally think that it would heighten his legacy. He beat the previous generation. He's beaten his generation, and now he's going to take on the next generation. I liken it very much to when Mayweather fought Canelo. Whenever Canelo now fights, you always mention Floyd Mayweather because Mayweather caught him at the right time, schooled him, and then bounced off. Mayweather's been retired for ages, but you still talk about him, and that's what could happen from a Jon Jones point of view. But the problem is, Jon Jones knows full well that Tom Aspinall could be the Shogun Rua fight that he became successful off the back of. Jon Jones could get beat off Tom Aspinall, and Jon just does not want that to happen.
Adam, I'm going to ask you a question, but you have to answer with a yes or no, okay?
Yes.
That's not the question, by the way. Do you think if Jon Jones refuses to fight Tom Aspinall, he's bottled it?
Well, yeah. That's basically what he's been saying himself this week. He's refusing to fight the next best guy, and the next best guy is Tom Aspinall, and he's doing it in order to protect his legacy. One of the things he said with an interview with somebody else is that I am not willing to gamble somebody else making a name off the back of me. That in itself answers your question. Every fight's a gamble, Andy.
Yeah, sure.
When you shut the door, every fight's a gamble.
Of course.
Why are you not willing to take the gamble with this guy?
Just quickly before I let you go, because we're over, but I'm curious. Have you seen him since, Jon Jones? Have you spoken to him?
Yeah. Yes. So what happened was he walked out of the conversation, of course, and then we managed to sort it out. And as I said, Nick Peake came in to do the interview, and as he was walking towards that interview, he came over to me and he said, "Listen, man, it's nothing personal. I know you're close to Tom. I just don't want to be in that headspace." And I said, "Okay, cool, man, no problem."
I have to heard the Nick Peake interview. It's brilliant. I don't think you could have done that well. It was a great interview.
Nick's actually sat next to me now, so he'll love what you've just said there.
Brilliant. One of the best interviews I've ever heard. So
yeah, much better than anything that I could have. It actually worked out better for TNT.
Anything.
Miles better.